Sky. What if, one quiet morning in the California desert, sky, NASA's most advanced listening antennas suddenly picked up a signal from deep space, sky, so precise and perfectly structured that every scientist in the room froze, no static, no background noise. Just a clear, sky, repeating transmission that no one could explain. This moment when the unexpected occurred of sky set the stage for one of the most unsettling cosmic mysteries ever faced by scientists, of sky. If you've ever been fascinated by the idea of strange interstellar objects and the possibility that something out there might be trying to communicate with us, sky, you're in for an extraordinary story. Right now, as you watch this, something incredible is happening in our solar system of sky. But this isn't a tale from the past or a historical discovery discussed years after the fact. No, sky, this is unfolding in real time above us in the silent space between the planets. Sky. Scientists around the globe are closely monitoring this, and many of them are asking questions they never thought they'd need to ask. Sky, the object at the heart of this mystery, is known as 3I Atlas of sky, only the third confirmed interstellar visitor detected as it entered our solar system. But unlike the objects that came before it, of sky, this one didn't just drift through space quietly. No, it did something no natural object has ever done before. It sent a signal of sky. And that signal, whatever its source, has forced scientists to reevaluate assumptions they've held for generations. Sky. To fully understand the scale of this mystery, let's rewind to October 17, 2025. On this morning of sky, NASA's Deep Space Network was conducting routine operations in the California desert. Sky. These antennas are some of the most sensitive instruments humanity has ever created. Sky, capable of tracking spacecraft billions of miles away, of sky, maintaining communication with probes like the Voyager missions as they journey through interstellar space. But that morning, sky, those antennas picked up something completely unexpected. It wasn't random cosmic noise of sky, nor was it solar interference or background radiation from the early universe. Sky, what they recorded was a structured electromagnetic pulse, one that repeated with incredible precision. Every 47 minutes of sky, a burst of energy arrived from the direction of 3I Atlas, the newly detected interstellar object. Sky, each pulse lasted exactly 3 seconds. Not 11 seconds, not 12, 11.3, repeating consistently like a perfectly calibrated clock of sky. At first, engineers thought the equipment had malfunctioned. They checked and rechecked the instruments, sky, running tests on multiple systems to ensure everything was working properly. But to their shock, every test returned the same result of sky. The signal was real. As the hours passed, things only got stranger. In just 5 hours, the signal strength increased by over 300%. Sky. Something inside that distant object seemed to be growing more active. Something was powering up. By this point of sky, it was clear this wasn't a routine observation, but what truly left the researchers stunned was the frequency of the signal of sky. It arrived at precisely 142 GHz. For those in the field of radio astronomy, that number might sound familiar. Sky. It corresponds to the natural emission line of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. Sky. This part of the radio spectrum is known as the water hole, a frequency that scientists have long speculated any advanced extraterrestrial civilization would use to communicate. Sky hydrogen is universal. It exists in every star, nebula, and galaxy of sky. Any civilization capable of studying the cosmos would recognize that frequency instantly of sky. So if someone were trying to send a message across space, this would be the perfect signal for them to use. Sky. And that's exactly where the signal from 3I Atlas appeared. But it wasn't just a simple repeating pulse. Sky. Within the 11.3 second cycle, researchers discovered multiple layers of structure. Smaller patterns repeated every 1.7 seconds, sky, and inside those patterns were even faster fluctuations resembling encoded data of sky. It was like opening a box and finding another box inside, and then another. Sky. NASA quickly assembled a team of experts from various fields: cryptographers, communications engineers, AI specialists, sky and radio astronomers. They compared the signal to every known natural source of radio emissions: pulsars, magnetars, quasars, of sky, solar storms, plasma turbulence, everything. But after conducting a thorough analysis, the conclusion was both surprising and shocking. Sky. The probability that the signal was produced by natural astrophysical processes was calculated at less than 0.3%. In other words, there was more than a 99.7% chance that this signal was artificial. Let that number sink in. 99.7% of sky. And the object transmitting this signal had just entered our solar system from interstellar space. At this point, sky. The mood inside NASA's control room shifted from curiosity to something much more serious. If this signal was indeed artificial, sky, then the implications were enormous. Of sky. Something out there had not only created a transmitter capable of broadcasting across interstellar distances, of sky, but it had also chosen to bring that transmitter directly into our cosmic neighborhood, of sky. Just 3 days after the first signal was detected, something happened that made the entire situation even more unsettling. Of sky. The transmission, which had been repeating consistently and predictably, suddenly changed. Until that moment, sky, the signal had behaved like a steady beacon, arriving every 47 minutes with remarkable precision. Of sky. Scientists assumed whatever was generating the transmission was either automated or following a fixed internal cycle. But on the morning of October 20th, 2025, at 9:14 UTC, the pattern shifted. The 11.3-second burst was still present. Sky. But the internal structure of the signal had changed. Instead of the familiar repeating rhythm of sky, there was now an irregular sequence of pulses that had never been seen before. At first, of sky, engineers thought there could be interference from Earth. Perhaps a satellite had crossed the antenna's line of sight, or solar activity had distorted the data. Of sky. However, after quickly eliminating these possibilities, it became clear that the signal had genuinely altered. Of sky. The transmission was no longer following its previous predictable pattern. Of sky. What made this discovery even more perplexing was the timing. Just 2 hours before the shift occurred, sky, a network of observatories had confirmed that 3I Atlas had slightly altered its trajectory. Sky. The change was incredibly small, less than 1/100th of a degree, but it was enough to alter its path through the solar system. Of sky. Natural objects like asteroids do not perform trajectory corrections, while comets may experience slight changes due to gas jets. Sky. These movements are chaotic and often accompanied by visible plumes. Yet 3I Atlas displayed no such plumes. Still, its path had shifted. Of sky. When scientists compared the timing of the trajectory change with the moment the signal pattern altered, sky, the correlation was impossible to ignore. The two events, movement and transmission change, occurred within the same 90-minute window. Sky. Something about the object's movement and the signal it emitted appeared to be connected. Inside NASA's analysis rooms of sky, the atmosphere grew tense. Researchers began feeding the signal data into advanced pattern recognition systems, sky, hoping to determine whether the irregular pulses contained any hidden structure. Within hours of sky, the computers returned a result that left several analysts in disbelief. Sky, the new pattern wasn't random. It followed a mathematical sequence. Specifically, it was built around prime numbers of sky. The pulses were grouped in clusters of 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11, separated by precise intervals. In mathematics of sky, prime numbers are considered one of the most universal languages, something any advanced civilization would recognize. Of sky, scientists had long speculated that prime numbers would likely be used as a clear indicator of artificial origin. Now, sky, that exact pattern appeared in the signal from 3I Atlas. But the discovery didn't stop there. As the analysis continued, sky, another startling realization emerged. The prime number clusters weren't simply repeating in order of sky, they were forming a grid-like structure. When scientists converted the pulses into a binary image, sky, something unexpected appeared on the screen, a geometric pattern, sky. It was simple but unmistakably deliberate, lines and shapes arranged in symmetrical configurations that couldn't be easily explained by natural physics. Sky. Some researchers even compared it to the early computer graphics produced on Earth in the 1960s. This discovery was a game changer. Sky. The transmission from 3I Atlas wasn't just a signal, it was becoming something far more complex of sky, something that had all the hallmarks of deliberate design. And as the team continued analyzing sky, it became increasingly difficult to dismiss the possibility that the object wasn't just a drifting piece of space debris. Instead of sky, 3I Atlas might very well be a messenger, carrying a signal meant for someone, somewhere. But if it was a message, what was it saying of sky? Meanwhile, telescopes tracking 3I Atlas began to reveal more about the object's physical characteristics of sky. As it moved deeper into the solar system, its shape became clearer. Unlike typical asteroids, which tend to be jagged and irregular, sky, 3I Atlas appeared elongated, about 2 kilometers long, with an unusually smooth surface. The surface reflected very little sunlight of sky, which was another oddity. Most asteroids have rough, rocky textures, yet 3I Atlas seemed almost polished of sky. What made this even more intriguing was the fact that parts of the object appeared warmer than expected of sky. Despite having traveled through the frigid cold of interstellar space for millions of years, 3I Atlas wasn't entirely cold of sky. The temperature readings showed a few degrees of warmth above the background temperature, enough to suggest internal activity of sky. This discovery raised more questions. Was the signal coming from within the object itself, sky, or was something inside it generating the transmission? With each new finding, the mystery deepened of sky. Scientists began to consider the possibility that the signal wasn't just random cosmic noise. It wasn't something natural. It could, in fact, be the result of something intelligent, something out there, beyond Earth. The implications of that possibility were enormous. Of sky, for generations humanity has looked to the stars, asking the age-old question, are we alone? And now, of sky, that question was starting to take on a new sense of urgency. Sky astronomers calculated the point where 3I Atlas would make its closest pass to Earth's orbital path. That date was March 8, 2026, of sky, less than 5 months away. As that date loomed, the scientific community began to buzz with activity. Sky. If 3I Atlas was intentionally sending a message, and if it was moving closer to our planet, sky, then perhaps it wasn't just a random broadcast across the galaxy. Maybe it was meant for us. As the weeks passed and March 8, 2026, sky, drew nearer, the mystery surrounding 3I Atlas deepened. With each new observation of sky, it became increasingly clear that this object was no ordinary interstellar visitor of sky. The data being collected was nothing short of perplexing, and as it moved closer to Earth's orbital path of sky, it seemed to be behaving in ways that defied natural explanations. Scientists around the world were closely monitoring it, sky, each team hoping to uncover something that would explain the peculiarities of the object and its signal. By early November 2025, sky, the evidence against the idea that 3I Atlas was a simple asteroid or cosmic debris was too compelling to ignore. Sky observations from multiple space agencies and universities had confirmed something unexpected. Sky. The object didn't behave like anything previously encountered. It was too stable, too precise, sky, too deliberate in its movements and in the signal it was emitting of sky. There was a growing sense among researchers that 3I Atlas might be something far more significant than a rock hurtling through space. Sky. Astronomers tracking the rotation of 3I Atlas made another startling discovery. Unlike most asteroids, Sky, which tumble unpredictably through space, 3I Atlas rotated with remarkable stability. Sky, its rotation period was calculated at approximately 7 hours and 12 minutes. Sky, with its axis of rotation remaining almost perfectly steady relative to its direction of travel. Of Sky, this was a rarity among natural objects. Sky, especially those that have been drifting through the vacuum of interstellar space for millions of years. Of Sky, the lack of irregular motion further hinted that there was something engineered about this object. But it was the signal, Sky, more than anything, that continued to drive the investigation. Researchers started to notice subtle changes in the transmission of Sky. The prime number clusters, which had been the foundation of their analysis, were still present, Sky, but the spacing between them had started forming larger repeating cycles. As they mapped the signal over time of Sky, it began to resemble the type of encoding used in digital transmissions, sequences of pulses arranged in patterns that suggested deliberate organization. Sky. To test this hypothesis, engineers began reconstructing the signal as a grid of binary values. Sky. Each pulse was converted into a 1 or a 0, depending on its intensity. What they found was nothing short of astonishing. Of Sky, the reconstructed pattern revealed shapes that were clearly geometric, lines intersecting at precise angles. Sky, blocks arranged in symmetrical formations. It was as though the signal contained a form of primitive digital imagery. Sky, similar to the way early spacecraft from Earth transmitted pictures back to ground stations. This, however, of Sky, wasn't coming from a man-made satellite. It was coming from an object that had traveled across the vast expanse of interstellar space. Of Sky, as the signal continued to evolve, the question on everyone's mind became clearer. Sky, was this an accidental byproduct of the object's movement, or was it a deliberate coded message? Sky, the evidence was mounting in favor of the latter. But that raised an even more profound question. If this was a message of Sky, who was it meant for? Was it really designed for humanity, or was it simply a random occurrence in the vastness of space? Of Sky, the mystery deepened as new data came in. Observatories began detecting more detailed images of 3I Atlas. Of Sky, and the object's shape became even more peculiar. It was elongated, roughly 2 kilometers long. Sky, but it was its surface that captured the attention of scientists. Unlike the jagged, irregular surfaces of typical asteroids, Sky 3I Atlas had a smooth, almost polished appearance. It didn't reflect sunlight in the way that most space objects did. Of Sky, the surface was nearly featureless, and this led some researchers to question whether it was a natural formation at all. Of Sky, thermal imaging added another layer of complexity to the puzzle. Despite traveling through the cold vacuum of interstellar space, Sky, parts of 3I Atlas were warmer than expected. The temperature readings suggested internal activity. Of Sky, though nothing visible had been observed to explain it. Of Sky, some scientists speculated that it could be due to trapped gases slowly escaping from the object, generating heat through friction. Of Sky, others proposed that radioactive decay of rare elements deep inside the object might be the cause. Of Sky, but these theories didn't fully explain the heat readings. Sky, and the uneven distribution of warmth across the object was particularly puzzling. As this data poured in, the scientific community grew more divided. Of Sky, some still clung to the idea that 3I Atlas was a naturally occurring object, an asteroid that had somehow been altered by the unique conditions of space travel. Sky. Others, however, began to seriously consider the possibility that 3I Atlas was not just a piece of space debris. Sky. It might be a sophisticated object, purposefully designed and placed in our cosmic neighborhood. If this was the case of Sky, then the implications were staggering. In late December 2025, something else happened that further fueled the growing speculation. Sky. A brief but measurable increase in heat was detected in a specific region of 3I Atlas near its center of sky. The temperature rise lasted only a few minutes, but it was significant enough to raise alarms of sky. It wasn't just the increase in temperature that was concerning. It was the fact that it occurred just 3 minutes before the signal pattern changed again. Sky. The pulses stopped briefly, and when they resumed, they had taken on a new structure of sky. This was the first time since the signal had been detected that it had actually paused and then altered itself. Sky. It was an unsettling development of sky. The fact that the signal could stop and change suggested that it wasn't just an automated broadcast. It was being actively controlled. Sky. But by whom and why? As the months passed, the significance of these findings began to dawn on the scientific community of sky. The discovery of 3I Atlas had forced humanity to confront an uncomfortable possibility: we might not be alone in the universe of sky. The idea that something intelligent, something far beyond our current understanding, might be trying to communicate with us was both exhilarating and terrifying. Sky. And as 3I Atlas continued on its path toward the inner solar system, the question on everyone's mind became, sky. What happens when it reaches its closest point to Earth? As March 8, 2026 approached, sky, the excitement surrounding 3I Atlas intensified. Its path was well mapped out of sky, and it was clear that this object would pass close to Earth's orbital path. While it wouldn't collide with our planet of sky, the proximity was enough to raise alarms within the scientific community. What was most troubling was not just the object's trajectory of sky, but its behavior. Every time scientists thought they had a handle on it, something new would happen. Sky, adding more layers to the already complex mystery. By early January 2026, Sky teams from around the world were pooling their resources to study 3I Atlas in even greater detail. Sky. They knew this was a rare opportunity, a chance to study an object from interstellar space of sky, something few would ever get to experience in their lifetimes. But the pressure was mounting of sky. If 3I Atlas was indeed trying to communicate, its message might hold the key to answering one of humanity's oldest questions. Sky, are we alone? And if there was intelligence out there, what would it mean for life on Earth? Sky. The object itself continued to confound researchers. As the weeks passed, the signal patterns evolved further. Sky, now showing even more intricate structures. The prime number sequences were still present of sky, but they had expanded into more complex groupings. Pulses appeared at intervals that seemed to correspond with larger cycles. Sky, further reinforcing the idea that whatever was transmitting the signal was trying to send a clear message. Sky. The signal now appeared more sophisticated, almost as if it was intentionally designed to get the attention of someone or something. Sky. Then, in February 2026, a breakthrough came. As scientists examined the most recent data from the object's trajectory of sky, something strange was noticed. A faint but undeniable disturbance had appeared in the object's movement. Sky, one that couldn't be attributed to any known natural forces. The trajectory had slightly shifted again of sky, this time in a more pronounced way. It was as if the object was adjusting its course with purpose of sky, navigating through the solar system in a way that no other asteroid or comet had ever done before. Of sky. This new shift seemed to happen in sync with the changes in the signal. This development raised even more serious questions. Sky, could 3I Atlas be an artificial object? Was it being controlled remotely, or was it self-propelled? The possibilities were endless of sky, and the data was piling up faster than it could be analyzed. With each new finding, sky, the idea that 3I Atlas was not just another space rock began to feel more and more like an undeniable truth. Sky, as the object continued to travel closer to Earth, a new phase in the investigation began. Telescopes across the world, sky, Both ground-based and in space began to focus more heavily on 3I Atlas. What was once a faint speck in the sky was now clearly visible. Sky. The object's shape was becoming even more defined, revealing more unusual characteristics. Its elongated form of sky, which had first been noticed months earlier, became even more prominent. The smoothness of its surface, the near absence of craters of sky, and the symmetry of its features all pointed toward something engineered. Some researchers suggested that 3I Atlas might be a probe, sky, a piece of technology sent from a distant civilization. The idea of a probe traveling across interstellar space, of sky, sent to explore or make contact with intelligent life was no longer just a science fiction concept. It was a very real possibility. Sky. If this was the case, then the object was much more than a simple asteroid. It was a message, a beacon, sky, a signal from a civilization that had mastered the technology to send something across the vast distances of space. However, sky, not everyone was convinced. There were still many who believed that 3I Atlas could be a natural object, sky, albeit one that exhibited unusual characteristics of sky. They argued that the prime number patterns and other features could simply be coincidental or the result of natural processes we didn't fully understand of sky. While the evidence against this theory was mounting, it was still impossible to say for certain whether the object was truly artificial. Sky. One thing was clear, though 3I Atlas was becoming the most studied object in the history of space exploration. Sky. It was the focus of nearly every major observatory of sky, and scientists from all fields were poring over every bit of data they could get their hands on. With each passing day of sky, more information came in, and the complexity of the object only deepened. But no matter how much data was collected of sky, one question remained: what was 3I Atlas trying to communicate, and who or what was sending it? As the object grew closer to Earth of sky, the excitement in the scientific community reached a fever pitch. The next few months would be crucial of sky. The data being gathered now would determine whether 3I Atlas was simply a cosmic curiosity or something far more significant. Sky. And as researchers continued their work, a quiet realization began to settle in. Whatever 3I Atlas was of sky, its presence in our solar system was a turning point for humanity. The questions it raised and the answers it might provide, sky, could change the course of our understanding of life in the universe forever. March 8, 2026 was fast approaching. Sky, the day that 3I Atlas would make its closest pass to Earth's orbital path. What would happen when it reached that point? Sky. Would the object continue to send signals, or would it fall silent? Sky. Was it a harbinger of something greater, something we weren't yet prepared for? Or was it simply a cosmic anomaly? Sky. Something that would pass by, leaving us with more questions than answers? As March 8, 2026 came closer, sky, the anticipation surrounding 3I Atlas reached an all-time high. Scientists were now on high alert of sky, knowing that the object would soon make its closest approach to Earth's orbital path of sky. The data collected so far was enough to suggest that 3I Atlas was no ordinary visitor to our solar system. But as the object neared sky, one question continued to dominate the minds of researchers: what was its true purpose? In the weeks leading up to the closest approach, sky, the focus shifted from theoretical analysis to real-time observation. Telescopes from across the globe were zeroed in on 3I Atlas sky, providing a wealth of new data. Every detail, no matter how small, was scrutinized. The object's surface, shape of sky, and thermal readings were all examined in an attempt to understand its origins and purpose. Sky. The question of whether 3I Atlas was a natural object or an artificial one was still hotly debated. Sky. But the growing body of evidence seemed to be pushing scientists closer to one conclusion: 3I Atlas was not a random asteroid of sky. It was something far more intentional, One of the most compelling pieces of evidence was the continuous changes in the signal sky. As the object moved closer to Earth, the pulses continued to evolve of sky. The intervals between the prime number clusters became increasingly complex, and new patterns began to emerge of sky. Some researchers believe that these changes were signs of a more sophisticated form of communication, sky, one that might eventually reveal a language or code. The signal wasn't static, it was adapting, of sky. This suggested that whatever was behind it wasn't just sending out random noise, it was actively engaging, of sky. The increasing complexity of the signal raised another question. If 3i Atlas was indeed trying to communicate, sky, who or what was the intended recipient? The answer to this question seemed to become more urgent with each passing day of sky. As the object drew closer, its trajectory became even more precise. The changes in its path were no longer subtle, sky, they were intentional and deliberate. In fact, as researchers continued to track 3i Atlas, sky, it became clear that the object had altered its course once again, this time in a way that would bring it even closer to Earth's path than originally expected. Sky. Some scientists began to speculate that this was no coincidence. Perhaps 3i Atlas wasn't simply a probe from an unknown civilization, sky, but something far more advanced, perhaps even a message deliberately sent to humanity. Sky. The proximity of its closest approach raised the stakes even further. Of sky. What if the object was drawing closer not to pass through our solar system, but to make contact? Of sky. What if the signals were part of a larger plan, one that humanity hadn't yet fully grasped? Despite the mounting evidence, sky, there were still some who refused to jump to conclusions. Sky. They argued that 3i Atlas could still be a natural object with strange characteristics that we didn't yet fully understand. Sky. There was still a possibility, albeit a small one, of sky, that the prime number sequences and changing signal patterns were the result of natural phenomena. Sky. But the overwhelming consensus among scientists was that the object's behavior was too structured, too deliberate to be purely random. Sky. As 3i Atlas continued its journey toward its closest approach to Earth, the sense of unease grew among researchers. Sky, the object was no longer a distant curiosity, it was here in our solar system, sky, and its presence was forcing humanity to confront some uncomfortable truths. If this object was a signal of sky, and if that signal was artificial, then the implications were staggering. We weren't just facing a random cosmic event of sky, we were potentially on the verge of discovering that we were not alone in the universe. But even as the mystery deepened, sky, the scientific community remained cautious. Of sky, there was still no definitive proof that 3i Atlas was a probe or a message from an intelligent civilization. The evidence, sky, while compelling, was not conclusive, and so the careful analysis continued, with each new piece of data examined and re-examined of sky. Despite the excitement and intrigue, there was still a sense of restraint. After all, sky, scientists knew that rushing to conclusions could lead to disastrous misinterpretations. As the final days before March 8, 2026, sky ticked away, the question on everyone's mind was whether the object would reveal more than just its signal of sky. Would there be a visual confirmation of its true nature of sky? Would we finally see something that could provide a clear answer to the question, what is 3i Atlas, and what is it trying to tell us? Sky. The countdown had begun. The mystery of 3i Atlas was nearing its climax, sky, and humanity was about to face a moment in history that could forever change our understanding of the universe. Were we truly alone of sky? Or was something out there, something intelligent, waiting to make contact? Sky. The next few months would tell us if this object was simply another strange cosmic event, or the beginning of an entirely new chapter in human history. Sky. As March 8, 2026 drew near, the entire world held its breath. Sky. The mystery surrounding 3I Atlas was no longer just a scientific curiosity, it had become a global enigma. Sky. The object's trajectory was now carefully monitored by space agencies and observatories worldwide. Sky. There was a shared sense of urgency. The time had come to unravel the final pieces of this incredible puzzle. Sky. The approaching date was significant for more than just its proximity to Earth. Of Sky. The question on everyone's mind was whether 3I Atlas would finally reveal its true purpose when it passed closest to our planet. Sky. Would it continue to send its mysterious signals, or would it fall silent? The object had already changed direction multiple times. Sky. And each alteration seemed too precise to be natural. Its signal had grown increasingly complex, its patterns more deliberate. Sky. It had moved through our solar system in a way that no known asteroid ever had. Sky. And the evidence suggested that 3I Atlas was not just a random cosmic object, it was something much more significant. Sky. In the days leading up to March 8th, scientists around the world prepared for the closest approach. Telescopes, Sky, both on Earth and in space, focused all their attention on the object. Of Sky. This would be their final opportunity to gather crucial data before it passed out of sight. Of Sky, the atmosphere among researchers was a mixture of anticipation and cautious optimism. With every new observation of Sky, the idea that 3I Atlas was a message, perhaps even from an intelligent civilization, seemed more plausible. Sky. But the evidence was still not conclusive. Was this an elaborate hoax or an extraordinary scientific breakthrough? Only time would tell. Sky. The final data collected in the days before the close approach revealed even more details about 3I Atlas. Sky. Its shape remained elongated and smooth, but now, as it grew nearer, its surface appeared more distinct. Sky. There was an undeniable symmetry to the object, and the thermal readings continued to suggest internal activity. Sky. Something inside was generating heat, albeit in small amounts. Of Sky. The object was not behaving like anything we had seen before in our solar system. It was a puzzle. Sky. And the pieces seemed to be fitting together in a way that suggested design, intelligent design. But what was the purpose of 3I Atlas? Sky. Why had it entered our solar system at all? As it came closer, scientists considered every possibility. Of Sky. Some believed that the object was a probe sent by an advanced civilization, a form of communication or exploration. Sky. Others thought it might be a beacon placed in our cosmic neighborhood to attract attention. Still, of Sky. There were those who argued that it could be a sophisticated tool or weapon, perhaps a piece of technology designed for a purpose we could not yet comprehend. Sky. The debates were intense and no one had a definitive answer. Then, on March 8, 2026, Sky. The object reached its closest point to Earth's orbital path. Telescopes were focused intently on 3I Atlas. Of Sky, capturing every moment of its approach. For the first time, scientists had a clear and uninterrupted view of the object. Sky. As it moved through space, the final pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Sky. The object's trajectory remained steady and precise, and the signal continued to pulse at regular intervals. Of Sky. But something was different. This time, the pulses were stronger, more defined, as if the object was sending a final, decisive message. Of Sky. As the object passed its closest point to Earth, there was a moment of silence among the scientists who had been tracking it. Of Sky. They knew this was the end of the mystery for now. Of Sky. The data collected over the past few months had provided more answers than they could have imagined. Sky. 3I Atlas had not only revealed itself as an incredibly advanced object, Sky, but it had also shown signs of deliberate action, intentional movements, intentional signal changes. And now it was departing. Of Sky, leaving behind a trail of questions and unanswered possibilities. The world had witnessed a moment in history. Sky. 3i Atlas had made its closest approach to Earth, and with it, of sky, humanity had come face to face with the possibility that we were not alone in the universe. The implications were profound. Sky. Were we really looking at evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence? Or was there another explanation? Only time would tell. Sky. But for now, scientists would continue to study the data, search for answers, sky, and prepare for the next chapter in the ongoing exploration of the cosmos. In the end, Sky. 3i Atlas had forced humanity to confront a question we had long avoided. Of sky. The possibility of intelligent life beyond Earth was no longer a distant dream or a speculative idea. It was a reality that had come knocking at our door. Of sky. And as we looked up at the stars, we were reminded that the universe is vast, full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Of sky. The story of 3i Atlas was far from over. It was just the beginning. Of sky. If this story has sparked your curiosity and you want to stay updated on the latest cosmic discoveries of sky, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button if you're as fascinated by the mystery of 3i Atlas as we are. Sky. And don't forget to share this video with friends who want to know more about what's happening in our solar system. Who knows? Sky. The next great discovery might be just around the corner. Stay tuned and keep exploring the unknown with us.